You are listening to a Life in Quebec podcast. For more, visit lifeinquebec.com.
The following article first appeared in the July 2013 issue of Life in Quebec magazine. The Aurian Haller Band, Story So Far, by Simon Jacobs. I met with the Aurian Haller Band in the basement recording studio of lead guitarist Paul Hinton's Sillery home. It was typical of many home studios, small, a low ceiling, and somewhat crowded, with curtains hanging on the wall to absorb sound. The soundboard, computers, and digital effects are stacked on a table near one of the rough and ready sound booths located at each end. Barry Namath, the band's drummer and percussion player, was wedged next to bassist Daniel Marcoux on a yellow chaise longue that's just been used as the centerpiece in the band's latest video. Guitarist and technical whiz Paul Hinton was seated beside his soundboard, fiddling with the microphone levels and checking the output of one of the tracks. Aurian Haller, the band's namesake and songwriter, was perched upon a folding chair next to a pile of microphone stands, facing the others. His dark, lanky hair, in contrast to Paul's clean-shaven scalp, moved out of his eyes with a flick of his head. The band's beginning. Paul and Aurian met about 6 years ago, around 2007, after Aurian moved to Quebec City. Paul, who works for the English School Board teaching music and community involvement, heard Aurian practicing at St. Vincent one day and realized that he was not a usual run-of-the-mill musician. They soon got together in Paul's studio to work on some songs that Aurian had written. First album. Once they had enough material, Paul invited his two friends Barry and Daniel, whom he knew from other bands, to join them in recording their first album, Normal Town, which was released in 2011. Normal Town is a place in Athens, Georgia, and was a strange place to be, especially right after 9/11, said Aurian. He spent a lot of time moving between there, Montreal, and Vancouver for a number of years before finally settling with his family in Quebec City. One of the songs we've performed live is called Blue Vertigo, and describes the bi-coastal vertigo of living between places. The songs in Normal Town are imbued with the different landscapes found between those places, he said. In contrast, the band's latest album, The Dark Room, reflects, quote, our inner landscapes, our paysage intérieur. The title song is based upon a poem from the Book of Hours, written by the early 20th century Bohemian poet Rainer Maria Rilke, who said of the darkness, I love you more than the flame that limits the world, to the circle it illuminates and excludes all the rest. As Aurian puts it, the rest is the darkness that excludes light, is mysterious, that represents the spiritual experience. This poem became the kernel for the album. A poster, which is included with a CD, contains all the lyrics and also includes the following explanation. This album was written at night, in basements and cellars, while our families slept. Aurian, who works as an arts consultant for the English School Board, is also a published poet, holds a master's degree in literature, another in creative writing, and a PhD in cultural geography. For English, contrary to the unilingual Normal Town, the latest album has also a couple of songs written in French. This was done to reflect the nature of the world the band lives in, as well as for strategic reasons. The French songs L'amour et ses couteaux and Plus que parfait are more likely to get airplay and exposure on local francophone radio shows than songs written in English. The album also reflects the quintessential Canadian nature of this band. Daniel, a full-time professional musician and composer, was born and bred in Quebec City and was brought up in the French milieu. On the other hand, Paul, whose parents were originally from Newfoundland, was also brought up in Quebec City, but went through the English school system. Barry, a retired policeman, originally came from Hamilton, Ontario, but was raised in Trois-Rivières. After his family moved there, he spent most of his childhood speaking English. It was only when he was a teenager and became interested in girls that he realized the necessity of speaking in French. Brought up in the shadow of the Rocky Mountains of British Columbia, Aurian is the only band member to come from outside of the province. All the same, he had connections with the city, as his father was born here to Newfoundland parents. Even though his father was an Anglophone, he still spoke French to Aurian, so that Aurian's move to Quebec City was not too linguistically challenging. The band uses both English and French during rehearsals, switching effortlessly between the two languages. The creative input. The initial creative kernel for a song comes from Aurian. Generally, he will write a song complete with the lyrics, melody, and chord structure, and give the others a recording of him singing it and accompanying himself on piano and guitar. As Paul put it, the lyrics create some kind of emotion, depending on what the song is about. What Aurian does to accompany it, along with the melody, amplifies that emotion a little bit. Then what we do should take that a step further. If we are subtracting from it, then we're doing something wrong and going in the wrong direction. It is thanks to the varied and mature experience that each member brings to the band that the pieces blossom. From that point on, it becomes a collaborative effort, and each member adding their own musical contribution and style. Great artists. The Dark Room features the guest appearance of Blue Rodeo's Bob Egan, who played the pedal steel on 4 of the 12 tracks. Egan didn't physically play with the band, but was sent a recording and then laid down his own tracks at his studio in Kitchener, Ontario, before sending them back for the final mix. Valérie Clio and Maude Brochu, 2 talented singers on the local music scene, provide backing vocals for some of the songs. Daniel Marcoux also wrote musical arrangements for string quartet on a few of the tracks. Paul mixed and produced both albums. The Dark Room was recorded over an 8-month period and had its final mix at Montreal's Grey Market Mastering Studio last fall. Where and what next? Unlike many other bands on the local scene, the Aurian Haller Band does not play cover songs and would prefer to break into the festival scene, playing more concerts as their reputation grows. For more information, check out their website, theaurianhallerband.ca, where you can find their upcoming concert schedule as well as download music and watch their videos.
Thank you for listening to the Life in Quebec podcast. For more news, commentary, editorials, and opinion, visit lifeinquebec.com/podcast.